Around the 1950s to the 1960s, the Earth's population reached about 3 billion. Scientists had realized that the planet's population would increase rapidly over the course of several years, when more and more religious and conservative views and beliefs on marriage, reproduction, and sexual intercourse had been forgotten and disregarded. The birth control pills were used to control the size of the world's population, also known as population control. This had slowed down the birth rate, created more space for every individual, improved family planning, and reduced an excessive amount of greenhouse gas emission being produced. There are many cultural and social shifts before the invention of birth control pills. Examples of these would be a rise in single motherhood, unmarried couples living together, open marriage, wife swapping, and women's liberation. These are all social factors which helped lead up to the invention of birth control pills. Along with social shifts which led up to the invention of birth control pills, it was also affected by the economy. Lowering birth rates could raise incomes in many less developed countries. In these countries, annual increases in national output are being dominated by the annual increase in population, with income per head slowly rising. Most of these countries' population increased by 2% to 3% every year. Some governments are encouraging the use of birth control, which they think will help their economy develop. Questions like how effective is raising incomes per head reduces fertility as compared with other investment of resources, and should the governments of less developed countries encourage voluntary birth control pills are being asked when thinking about legalizing birth control pills. One measure of successful economic development is a rising income. This can be done by reducing the number of births, which would reduce the income. Although the birth control pill was invented, it didn't mean that every country had legal rights to use it. It had been successfully used in Europe for many years. However, in Australia, it was delayed due to political conflict, and in 2013 it was made legal.
Before I talk about the modern day birth control pill, I would like to talk a little bit about the technology of medication at that period of time and the history behind the pill. So back in the 1950s, technology was invented, and World War II just 5 years ago. At that time, the polio vaccine was just created, and heart surgeons managed to stop blood flow within the human. Electric heart pacemakers were also developed. By the end of the 1950s, open heart surgery was performed regularly, and the success rate of such procedures increased dramatically. The most common type of contraceptive at that time were condoms and diaphragms, but people always wanted to make a more convenient instrument, and now onto people involved making the pill. Gregory Pincus first met Margaret Sanger in 1950. She asked him to work on and develop a birth control pill, but Pincus knew that the project would be a risk. Other scientists told Sanger that the pill wouldn't work, and in 1951, Carl de Grassi created a pill by blending hormones from Mexican yams, but he was not able to produce it or distribute it, and was not equipped to test it. In 1952, Pincus tested progesterone in rats and found it works. John Rock had also begun testing chemical contraception in women. In 1953, Catherine McCormick gave Pincus $40,000 to conduct research about the pill. In 1954, Pincus and Rock conducted the first human trials on 50 women from Massachusetts and found the pill works. A few years later, the FDA, Food and Drugs Administration, approved the drug, but only for severe menstruational disorder. You might think the pill must really work then, since it was passed by the FDA. However, some very serious side effects were ignored. 3 years later, the pill is approved for contraceptive work.
The big deal about birth control pills and what do they do? Nowadays, proper knowledge has been gained of this hormonal contraception. The hormones in the pills causes you to have a fake menstrual cycle. Every birth control pill contains a small amount of man-made estrogen and progesterone hormones, which prevents pregnancy in numerous ways. A combination of factors are that the hormonal contraceptive usually stops the body from ovulating.
It interrupts the signals from your brain that activates an ovulation. It changes the cervical mucus to make it difficult for the sperm to go through the cervix and to reach the egg. It changes the lining of the womb so that it becomes unlikely the fertilized eggs will be implanted. 62% of all women right now do use contraception. 28% of all females use birth control pills, as this method is accessible to women and is an oral approach to prevent a pregnancy, including the seasonal. It only contains one type of hormone, which is progesterone, rather than a combination. This makes it less effective at preventing pregnancy. Liberal, a daily pill that stops a female's period for 1 whole year. When compared to traditional contraceptive methods, the birth control pill is more convenient to use. There's less side effects and the highest successful prevention rate is 99.7% if used correctly. Also, birth control pills aren't just used to stop pregnancies. They are also used to make you have possibly less acne, less bleeding while on your menstrual cycle, and possibly less cramping. This is why the pill is now the second most common form of contraception after condoms. One every 3 months instead of 1 month. Accidental pregnancies occur in 9 out of 100 cases where women are taking pregnancy pills. The efficacy of birth control pills depends on a range of factors including medication and health history. There are negative and positive side effects of taking birth control pills. Negative side effects include irregular menstrual bleeding, nausea, headaches, dizziness, breast tenderness, mood changes, and blood clots. Positive side effects include lighter periods, fewer cramps, less acne, and protection from breast disease.
On to section 4. What are the impacts of the treatment on economic, environmental, social, and ethical factors? As there's too much information to be said, I'll be showing screenshots of more information. Just pause the video anytime you want. The short-term economical impact brought by the tricycline pill is very minimal. However, the long-term effect was more apparent. The pill helps society to equal gender wage gap and to increase the economic stability of a family purely by delaying childbirth until their 20s or 30s. Now into the environmental impacts of this medical advancement. The birth control pills can affect humans and aquatic life hugely. When the waste of birth control pills are released into the water becomes contaminated. Even low concentrations of ethanol estradiol can affect how an aquatic organism behaves physically and mentally. Our environment cannot keep up with the current reproduction and birth rates. As our world is quickly becoming more unsustainable, climate change will also be affected immensely. Population control is a serious issue that is now being explored everywhere as Earth's predicted carrying capacity is slowly being reached. Birth control pill could be the answer to this issue, however. Social factors. When women get a choice to choose when to bear a child, they gain control over their lives. This freedom of choice gives female more equal rights and reduces sexual discrimination. Relating back to economics, when women use contraceptives to prevent a pregnancy or to postpone it, they're able to get a job and stay in school, and many women cannot do that currently. In Ethiopia, one of the countries in the world with a very high growth rate, the government has realized the connection between the use of contraceptives and education and has made an effort to keep girls in school, so they have asked for an increase in contraceptive use and access. And finally, ethical factors. The most common religion around the world is Christianity, and as such I'll be focusing on Christianity. In the Bible, there is no issue with birth control, but many think it is wrong to use. Abortive birth pills are viewed as the worst birth pill there is, as you're killing a fertilized egg, which can be seen as killing a child, which refers back to the Bible as a sin. In conclusion, this is a significant medical advancement for human society as it allows a couple or family to plan better and reduce the chance of abortion. And as Planned Parenthood becomes more and more common, a family's economic stability would also increase as females are now able to predict when childbirth occurs and plan their future as a family with a baby in mind. It also gives female more freedom over choice and lives. Thank you.